I heard of this Matthias guy from a few people. They're like, oh, you got to meet Matthias. You got to connect with Matthias somehow. Right? I Googled you. I did have a sense of a connection through somebody that you're mentoring. I said, what makes him so successful? And this is what he told me, and I never forgot it.
You know, if I was into flashy cars or, you know, big gold watches or chains, I mean, I would do it. It's just not my thing, you know? And if that's what you're into and that's a motivating factor for you, that's awesome. That's great, you know? It's just personally, I'd be a fake. Some of these high net worth individuals that I work with in families, if I was rolling up in, you know, the brand new AMG and, you know, decked out and in designer and this and that, I think some of them might actually get a little bit turned off, especially if they could tell that that's not who I am. And just the business that I've built is based off of the calendar and the notes section under my contacts, my phone. So simple.
Welcome to Green Beans Go. On today's episode, we have Matthias Fretz. He had over $200 million in sales last year. And think about this, right? That's a lot of business. He has over $500 million in his entire career, and he's a number 4 agent in the entire country at Douglas Elliman. Matthias, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Claudio. I really appreciate being here today.
Awesome. So we'll cut right to the chase. How does somebody go from, you know, having just a regular job, looking to make some money, doing real estate, to being number 4 in the entire nation?
Sure, that's a great question. Persistence, you know, more than anything. I think in business in general, a lot of people hit hard times, and there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, especially in the beginning. There's a ton of downs, you know, a ton of times where you just feel defeated, and it's very easy to trick yourself, you know, during those difficult times that maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I shouldn't do sales. You know, I'll only speak from my own experience. Maybe commission-based doesn't make sense for me. I need more stability. You know, you really start to second guess your purpose and what you're doing. But persistence has really been the big thing, you know, across the board, as far as with following up with clients, with buyers and sellers, with staying on top of the market, even days where I don't want to go and check the hot sheet and look at the new inventory and see what's pending and sold and expired. It's staying current. You know, it's a constant absorption of facts, of numbers, you know, price per square foot, lineal price per square foot, the comps, the different builders, you know, all of these items that you really have to not just read, but know.
With persistence, Steve Jobs talks about how the reason why so few people succeed is because it's so hard, right? And most people will quit. Can you bring me back to a time where you were just like, I need to quit?
Sure. I haven't felt like quitting for some time. So I've been in the business now 10 years. And I would say those first 2 years, especially first 18 months, there's definitely a lot of times where I basically had quit, you know, mentally was just checked out and thinking, okay, this is just temporary. You know, I'm going to get my real job here soon. Yeah. So it's interesting. When I had a level, and I try not to talk about money too much, but there are certain aspects that I think need to be talked about, because when I had a certain level of income, it was easier to focus on the client instead of focusing on, you know, living paycheck to paycheck. And it made it much more enjoyable. It made it much more so that I could really think more outside of myself, you know, truly, because in the beginning, especially let's say that first year when I was strictly doing rentals, the focus definitely was on paying my rent, you know, paying for the gas money, paying for groceries, all of these different things. So I think that's also what made me want to quit, because I was treating it like a job because it was a necessity. There was no there was no backup plan. There was no trust fund. There was no, you know, money coming in. So as I got better at my job and as I started to really appreciate and like it, I started to get more successful. It became really less about the money and more about the client and about, the transaction, about the deal, about navigating difficult situations. That's really my passion too, you know, is like trying to get creative, trying to figure out a difficult transaction and how I can get it to the finish line. It's interesting. The first, say, like I said, 12, 18, 24 months, whatever it might've been, when it was more of just a job, that's when it was the easiest to want to just walk away and check out. You know, like I remember I was maybe a year and a half into it, and I was still interviewing with other jobs, like not real estate. Yeah. And I spoke with this one marketing company down, it was maybe like Delray, and they were explaining the salary and the requirements and the guidelines of the job and the whole thing. And it actually was pretty attractive, but I remember going home and just thinking, gosh, I put so much energy into this real estate thing, and I've done, and I see where it's going, you know, at that point, that I didn't want to throw it away. And I'm so grateful I didn't.
You know, it's just, it really is a marvel. The level of business you're doing is really kind of out of this world. It's really that 1% of people. Was there anything that you read along the way that got you to being one of the top agents really in the entire country?
You know, I read a few sales books, but there hasn't been really necessarily just one particular, you know, piece of literature where I've just been like, oh my gosh, like this is a career changing book. I know other agents and people in, you know, business have had that, but I've never really, I guess, placed a ton of emphasis on a single book. But I can recommend to someone new. People call me all the time, hey, I think I'm getting licensed, or I just got my license. And I always try to spend the time.
Yeah.
I never try to like say I'm too busy for that, because of how important it was for me when I was newer, when I would call an experienced, like a veteran agent, you know, to give 5 minutes. Hey, I'm busy right now, but by close of business, you know, I'll call you at 6. I'll call you. Can I give you a call tomorrow morning? Let's talk through it. Like, I love being able to give back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that people think you know, it's what I have to say is
it's valuable.
Valuable. Yeah. It's cool. You know?
Yeah, that's so good. And I can see it in your eyes. You really mean it when you say you like to give back. And you really have a really different lifestyle than the average top producer. What's motivating that?
You know, if I was into flashy cars or, you know, big gold watches or chains, I mean, I would do it. It's just not my thing, you know? And if that's what you're into and that's a motivating factor for you, that's awesome. That's great, you know? It's just personally, I don't need, you know, the new boat. I don't need the new car. I don't need, like I said, the jewelry. It's not who I'd be a fake. I'm not a car guy.
Yeah. Who are you? Like, what do you value? Because you know, you could buy the world, right? What do you really value in life?
In life, my family.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's it right there. You know, and a car payment for a Rolls Royce or for some other flashy new item or toy is just going to create more of a responsibility. So more time having to spend to make more, to feed that kind of desire to have whatever that is. And it's going to take me away from my family. I already work a ton.
Yeah,
you know, I work,
fair enough.
You know, pretty constantly. Why add that unnecessary pressure or stress for something I don't care about? You know, that's kind of, I guess, how I've always looked at it, is that I just, I don't need it. I don't want it. And I think a lot of my clients can appreciate that too.
Yeah.
You know, I think when some of these high net worth individuals that I work with and families, if I was rolling up in, you know, the brand new AMG and, you know, decked out and in designer and this and that, I think some of them might actually get a little bit turned off, especially if they could tell that that's not who I am, that I was trying to portray or be something that I'm not. You know, I try to be very transparent in who I am. So you know, what is, you know, going back to the question, is the most critical thing, definitely most important thing, what I place the most weight on is my family, without a doubt, and being true to myself.
What do you like to do with your family? Is there, do you like to go travel? Do you like to go places? What does that look like?
Yeah, all of it, you know. I like just even getting home after work, playing with kids, and, you know, playing with the kids in the house, or running around the neighborhood with the neighborhood kids too, and going in the pool, going to the beach, you know, something where you can be a little bit unplugged. Yeah, that's really it. Just activities where we're all together and we're all engaged, you know, and even in new experiences too, like taking them snowboarding, or they both surf too. They both, you know, like to dive, and Noah, my older one, he likes to spearfish, and Delilah loves to surf. So doing these passions, like, I'm very grateful, because like I've got one who likes to do one of my passions and the other one who really likes to do my other. So
They're mirroring you well.
Yeah, it works really well. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Before, you know, before we got into business in Florida, we actually did RV like around America. It was a good time. And, you know, something always happens when RVing. So do you have any stories with your family from RVing?
Oh gosh, I got one I can't tell.
Why can't you tell it?
My wife would kill me.
Could you give us a hint?
No. And then it's hard to really just say one. I'll get here. You know what? Actually, I'll tell you the reason why we got the RV.
Yeah.
Was Delilah is 4 years old and she starts competing in these surfing contests.
Yeah.
And it was right around, gosh, I want to say a month after COVID hit. So let's say April of 2020. And the contests are New Smyrna Beach, Jacksonville, Ormond Beach, Daytona, all over.
Yeah.
And we were staying at these hotels, and in peak COVID, the hotels were nothing. Talking $50, $100. You know, the hotels, the airlines, everyone was just desperate, right, for tourism.
Yeah.
And then I would say about 9 months after, so let's say closer towards Christmas, first of the year, New Year's, the hotels, they like jack their rates up crazy, 2-3x of what they were before COVID, right? So these like little rinky dink hotels in North Florida are now, $400 a night. And we're like, this is crazy. So we would stay at these hotels. And finally we were just like, you know what? We saw all these other families. They were at the RV park and we'd go visit them. There'd be 2, 3, 4, 5 RVs all stacked up next to each other on these campsites. All the kids are skateboarding. They're doing water balloon fights. They're doing all kinds of just fun stuff at the campsites. So that's the reason.
Nice.
Was the surf contest was why we got.
Do you get like one that you drive or one that you pull? Nice.
Drive. Yeah.
Is it a
the
classic?
pull would be, I see guys with the pull and so it's like they're drilling and this and they got to stabilize and all that. It was like kind of a pain in the butt,
Nice.
But yeah, that's really the reason why we got it. And I love it. I really do. And so do the kids. The kids love it as well. And sometimes I just take it for the day. Like if I'm taking them up to Fort Pierce to go surf or something, just load up the RV and it's like a little day adventure.
That's awesome.
So my daughter's 7th birthday was in March and we went to Peace River and got like 200 shark teeth. And what a fun, cool experience to be able to pull the RV basically right up there on the campsite, walk down to the river, sift for shark teeth and artifacts and everything else. And it gives you that freedom,
Yeah.
That's the whole goal.
So what's your why? What is it that pushes that amount of business? Because really there's got to be a huge driving force behind this.
Sure. It's to, continue to challenge myself. And if I'm going to do something, I really want to try to excel at it. I never really believe in just kind of, and that's been pretty consistent throughout my life is that, and sometimes to a negative, is taking things too much to the extreme, but hyper competitive.
Yeah.
Hyper competitive. Yeah. But I do want to see everyone succeed.
Yeah.
So it's not, I do. I really hope to see everyone flourish, do well, find their niche, but definitely competitive.
I love it. I'm very competitive myself.
Very
and I love to see people succeed, right? I like to see, other creatives, do well, but what can an agent do to stay competitive and really get to the highest level of real estate?
I've seen so many, especially guys, fail because they know it all. You can't tell them nothing, right? And that's in really any industry, any business is just this kind of one track mind that they don't want to hear any kind of criticism. My hope is that I can grow from every failure, In the beginning too, going back to what we talked about before, failure, I took it so personal and so poorly. I took failure poorly is the best way to put it. Now I take failure and I want to learn from it. I want to grow. I want to be better. I've always welcomed criticism, even though I can be sensitive and it can hurt, right? It still is going to be a catalyst for change in my business.
Yeah.
So asking Don Langdon, our broker, talking to Gary Porter, talking to these people, these mentors, talking to people like in my sphere to just always try to be better, I'll go on a listing appointment and not get the listing and I'll ask, I'll just say, listen, I'm not asking you to take the listing away or anything like that. What could I have done different? Why did you choose this other person? Just curious. That's it. Not trying to solicit you any further business. I just want to be better for the next time, but I'm going to utilize it either way, the successes and the failures.
So what keeps you competitive? Right?
What keeps me competitive? Realizing how short the day really is.
Yeah.
Wow. I was 27 years old. Yeah. And for about the last year in both the Gardens and the Jupiter office, I was number one. And the first few times you're like, oh my gosh, I'm number one. Like, this is great. Like I've hit it, I've done it. And then after, 6 months of being the number one listing agent and you're 26, 27, you're looking around and you're like, I need more.
Yeah.
It's really, that was the reason for the switch to Douglas Elliman was I go to that Palm Beach office at the old office at the Royal.
Yeah.
And around these agents, it's like, this guy did 50 million last year. This guy did 100 million last year. And especially back then, 2016, it wasn't that long ago, but those numbers were big, big numbers. I love that I'm not number one, because I can't rest on my laurels. I have to keep going.
Yeah.
I love that there's these agents in our company that just crush it. I was so motivated. I felt like such a small fish in a big pond. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be humbled a bit in my production and what I had been doing. Instead of constantly getting pat on the back and these little awards for what I was doing at my old
glass
company,
awards.
I wanted to be like, I had to really, yeah, exactly. I had to really push to make a name for myself, to make that switch and be around those type of people that were just, like I said, crushing it, you know, doing these big numbers and seeing how they work.
Yeah.
Seeing how they navigate situations and transactions, seeing how they take a call.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a small space at the old office on the Royal. Certain agents would, you know, other calls they might with the client, give them the time, work through it. But let's say it was the inspector, the mortgage broker, the title company, the photographer. It was like boom, boom, boom. It was 30 seconds, right? I was like, wow, efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Really learning that efficiency because you have to attack, right? You have to move quick. And, that's helped me to be competitive, is because realizing how short the day really is.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. Yeah. So proximity is huge. What has it been like to get in the proximity of legends, being around people like Gary? Is there any inspiration you took from Gary? Is there anything, you know, any way to describe him, any stories of him that just really, you know, push you to that next level?
There's so many agents at the office that I still continue to look up to and have learned so much from. And the most important person, truth be told, is Don Langdon. So Don Langdon, our regional broker, is the reason I switched to Douglas Elliman. He's the reason behind so much of my success in navigating, you know, some difficult transactions over the years. And I spoke about this recently, where I'll be stuck in a transaction thinking, okay, the only avenues, the only routes I have is A, B, and C, right? I have to choose A, B, and C, or help the client choose A, B, and C. And I called Don, and in 30 seconds, Don goes, well, what about D, E, F, G, H? I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, he opens it up to so many more, because he has so much experience, right? He's been in it for 40 years, right? That it's like, he knows how, he's experienced thousands upon thousands and thousands of transactions, more really. And he just knows his stuff. So having him as a mentor these days, the last 6-7 years, has been massive, you know. And then seeing Gary and seeing the numbers he's done and seeing other agents in our offices and the numbers they do is really inspiring, you know, and wanting to, and not just their numbers, but their lifestyle, you know, from how they spend time with their family, how they travel, how they give back, how they service their clients, how their clients talk about them. I mean, that's critical. Like, my desire, my goal is that the end result, the client says, Matthias really took care of me, you know, and that shows when they give you a referral, right?
Yeah.
Referrals. Matthias really took care of me. He really had my best interest at heart. I could always get him on the phone. You know, he was able to present me these pre-market options, whatever, you know, the situation may have happened, how, you know, it went down, is that it's, that's the goal, is that the clients think of you in a positive limelight. That's success, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't get to those levels if people don't admire the work that you're doing. We've heard such great things about Don. Is there something about him that makes him different?
He's different.
Yeah.
He's totally different. And anyone will tell you that, in a sense that, like, you can't get him down. It's unreal how much he navigates in a day and how much negativity, because agents don't necessarily call their regional broker when they're just having a good day. Hey, Don, just want to let you know that today is beautiful and sunshine and flowers, and I just closed this big deal. I'd say seldom. Most of the calls that Don fields and gets throughout the day are complaints, you know, or difficult transactions or situations where it might be getting litigious. And, you know, Don's on the other end of the phone having to kind of mediate a lot of this. And it's so impressive to never hear Don say something negative. You don't. He still is just smiling, positive, happy to be alive, happy to be at work, happy to serve, right? Happy to help the community and the people that work with Element and outside of Element too. I mean, even a lot of guys my age, younger, that grew up in the area, Don has helped them in one way or another, you know? And just out of who he is, not trying to get something, right? And that's how it feels with Don. Like, it doesn't feel like, okay, Don's gonna do a favor for me, and then I owe Don. It's never like that. It's really no strings attached. Just, you can truly feel that he just wants to help. That's my role model, to be like Don, to be of service to people, and of course make an income and provide for your family, but to give back.
That's so good. Well, people also know that you like to surf.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
They know you like to surf. It's no secret. Can you describe what that's like being out there on the water and actually just having no phone, just the ocean? Why do you love it so much?
So about 3.5 years ago, I had an Apple Watch for about 6 months, and I was taking out surfing because, oh gosh, I might get something that's really time sensitive and this and that. And I remember I was surfing, and it was right at daybreak up in Jensen Beach with a friend of mine, and I fell on a wave on the inside, and the watch popped off. And oh gosh, I'm trying to like locate it on my phone, and I was like, this is such a blessing.
Yeah.
Things gone, we're done with that, because of what you just said. It's like that disconnect for an hour or 90 minutes, a lot of times early in the morning too.
Yeah.
And it's almost just like a refresher. It's like a detox from all that stuff to get out there, get in the salt water, connect with nature, maybe see some friends out there and be in the moment, be present. It's so hard in 2023 to truly be present. It is. It's a challenge. There's so many distractions, and it's constant. You can work constantly, 24/7. And I think that's part of why, blessing and a curse, I've been able to be so successful. Like if we think this was the 90s and there was no iPhone and I couldn't do contracts from my phone and send emails and call while I'm on the road and do all of these things, 25 years ago, I wouldn't have the level of business I have. There's no way in 10 years I would have been able to do what I've done if I couldn't be readily available as much as I am,
Yeah.
So free diving, spearfishing, and surfing, those are definitely my saving graces, and why I think I've been able to be so successful, because I am able to recharge my batteries. I am able to work, at a pretty high level, because I know that I'm going to have some time in the water, and it is such a, a lot of guys, they go to the gym, and gals, or they go, to a circuit class, whatever it might be, but you're still connected.
The phone's still in the pocket.
Still in your pocket. Yeah. So surfing, and spearfishing, definitely.
Yeah.
Being at the bottom of the ocean, you can't be thinking about the deal when you're trying to keep your heart rate down, so you're hunting a fish. It's like, it's impossible. And same thing, like if you're surfing, if you're thinking about the deal and you're on the wave and you're trying to read the section and do whatever you're doing, it's like the deal has to go away. It's always there, but it has to, it has to go away for a little bit.
Yeah. So would you say you have true moments of like disconnect and bliss out there?
Definitely.
That's amazing. And
definitely
rare.
Yeah.
I mean, who else? Yeah. How many people do you know I can say they have true moments of disconnect? It's very hard.
It's hard. And it's, they're a bit fleeting for sure, especially if I'm in, and there's sacrifices. I can't be in the middle of a deal negotiating back and forth and just say, I'm going surfing, or I'm going on the boat for the day. I can't do that. Like I care too much about the clients and the deals and things like that. But there's definitely, I am able to surf, and I am able to go spearfishing and free diving, and that is my community, and those are my people. And there's getting a barrel, that's a moment where you're definitely not thinking about the deal. Surfing bigger waves too. You can't. And then, like I said, free diving, spearfishing, you're totally engulfed in the moment. And it's such like a sensory overload too, being on the reef and surrounded by fish and hunting that big grouper or that hogfish, whatever it might be.
Beautiful.
You're in the zone. You're totally in the zone,
It's another world for you.
Totally different world. Yeah.
And with that world, right, do you have any stories of like down in the ocean, anything you're like, wow, like I can't believe this happened? Anything you can remember?
There's definitely been surfing and diving,
Okay,
or
whatever story kind of comes to mind.
Surfing and diving. Gosh. A lot of the moments now too are with my kids, which is so cool. Seeing Delilah catch some of her first waves on her own. Those are moments where I'm not pushing her into waves. This little girl just kind of like taking charge. That's so cool to me. And then Noah, we were in Eleuthera with Nathan Pinder. He's a great captain over there. Spanish Wells, Harbor Island, Eleuthera, North Eleuthera, that whole area, and seeing him just go down and plugging groupers, on his own, and shooting snappers and stuff like that. It's like, holy smoke. So for me now, those are the moments that I really cherish, and is super cool to see. My own stuff. There's definitely been a few fish over the years. There was a big cubera I shot about 3 years ago in the Bahamas, and it was about 3-4 months. So I had an injury. I actually tore my inner ear in June of 2021. I couldn't dive for a while. I was actually really scared. I was scared to dive deep again because it gave me this just terrible vertigo. And, is it permanent? Is it not permanent? So it was the first fish I shot at depth. It was about 60, 70 feet. And it was about a 50, 60 pound cubera. And it was just cool to know I could do it again. It was a really freeing feeling because it's something that I really do love to do, to know that my body, had recovered and was able, it's happened again, unfortunately, but to know that I was able to do it again, that was a special fish. And then last summer, I was with some friends in the Bahamas as well, and there was a pretty sizable grouper as well that was deep under a cave in about 70, 72 feet. And that was, it took about an hour and a half to get him out of the cave, and a lot of up and downs and a lot of teamwork, which was cool.
So good.
My buddy Dante was helping push me up the reef, and my other buddy was spotting me, and we were able to go, and then he helped me get it out of the hole too. So there's definitely some memorable experiences in the water that with the kids, and then also with my own experiences that, I think that I live for, definitely. From an outside perspective looking in, seeing, he's, the surfing or the diving, and there's the homes. They're not separate.
Okay.
And the reason they're not separate is that house I just listed, I was on a dive trip with that guy. Or this house I just sold, that buyer, I was just surfing with him. And this is community.
I love that.
And they're so connected.
Yeah.
And it's being able to not just be that salesperson in their life, but also their friend, that we have these shared mutual hobbies and interests. So the conversation isn't just, well, your home now is worth $750 price per square foot, and
That's beautiful.
It's like so much more fun, and we get to know each other's families and go on the boats together and do, go surfing or go to the beach. And like, that's what makes it so enjoyable for me too. That it's not just these black and white numbers. It's also like, it's community.
Yeah. Ryan Serhant talks about people hate being sold, but they love shopping with friends. I think a misconception that people get in sales, right? Because whether it's, home sales, auto sales, insurance sales, is people can get so focused, right? Human nature can get so focused on achieving a sale through skills, through tactics, but really people hate being sold. They love shopping with friends. And the fact that you create those experiences where, hey, you guys are doing multi-million-dollar property deals together, but at the same time, maybe you guys catch each other in the Bahamas, deep in the water, right? That's a pretty, special thing. And I think something worth bringing awareness to is that you've created friendships with these people. And even from like the outside, like from my perspective as, as a camera professional, marketing professional, it's almost like I'm seeing these as like different worlds, but I'm so glad that you brought that together. These are the same worlds. And I've noticed that with other people who are in the echelon of business that you do, that a lot of their business is tied to the fact that you have shared interests and hobbies. And it's something that I think is really commonly overlooked for people starting off. So I wanted to bring awareness to that.
I don't believe in I think this is something to go to what you just said though about Serhant saying, people don't want to be sold, the friends aspect. I don't really believe in the scripts. I'm sorry if I'm going to offend anyone, but a lot of the coaching stuff too, that's generic, that's not, specific, or that's hard for me to really get behind too. I should say the scheduling coaching, meaning, okay, from 8 to 10, you're going to do this. And from 10 to 12, our business is so fluid, in real estate, I should say, it'd be really difficult to do. And the script stuff too, it's like, I know when someone on the other end of the phone is trying to sell me something is on a script. And it's like, it's really hard for me to listen. We're being sold so much every single day, every person, right? That it's like, I just turn off,
Yeah, that's good. I mean, what's so interesting about you is how different you are, right? Like, and I think it's so cool. And there's so much that people can learn from your story, because you don't have that average story, right? There wasn't a favor, there wasn't a handout. You mentioned there wasn't a trust fund. You started from scratch. And that brings me back to the question that I was asking you before was, you told me before that you got into real estate, not to dominate, not to be one of the top agents in the country, but to just be able to surf. Can you bring us that story to life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a friend. I was working at the City of Palm Beach Gardens. I was working for the skate park, and then I got my degree from FAU in marketing. And then I was working for the city, doing other little odd jobs for them and whatnot, in the front desk at the recreation department. I was interviewing marketing jobs, and every job was 8 to 5, 8 to 6 when you're starting out. You know, the pay was man, and a lot of them were down in Miami. And I really wanted to stay in this, Jupiter, North Palm, Juno Beach area.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, was doing rentals, and he was doing okay. He was making a living doing it. And I realized, I said, okay, so what are the hours? And, what's the salary? He's like, well, no, it's commission, and this is how you get paid. And I was like, okay, but like, do you have to go to the office? No, it's 1099. And if you have a client, you have a client. If you don't, well, you don't, And I remember thinking, okay, so he's like, I was like, so theoretically, if there was waves and I wanted to go surf, he's like, well, yeah, if you didn't have a client or you didn't have showings. I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And that was a motivating factor in the beginning. And it was a continued motivating factor when I was interviewing at other places and looking at the schedule and thinking, I'm going to be absolutely miserable. It's few and far between that we have good days of surf in South Florida. I mean, we're not in Southern California. We're not in Hawaii, we're not in Puerto Rico. And so when the opportunity arises, you have to go,
Gotta take the surf.
Got to go. Even if it's a short while, you got to go. And I remember thinking, like, I'm going to be chained, stuck in this office, interviewing at these places, thinking, I can't envision it. I can't do it, So it was a motivating factor in the beginning. And then when I was a year and a half in, and I was still not really liking my career so much, especially the first year, I was not in love with being a realtor, it still was a motivating factor to stay with it. And today, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, that's cool. So you're merging those worlds together.
Absolutely.
And as we, near the end of our podcast, I remember that, when I first got into the business, right? I heard of this Matthias guy from a few people. They're like, oh, you gotta meet Matthias. You gotta connect with Matthias somehow. And I did have a sense of a connection through somebody that you're mentoring. So I know that you really value mentorship. And it was Seth. And I said, Seth, what makes this guy so successful? Right? I Googled you and like, all right, cool. This is pretty cool, right? Like, I said, what makes him so successful? And this is what he told me, and I never forgot it.
Okay.
He said he does 200 phone calls a day. He said he's always on the phone. He's really he does what other people don't do. So, a lot of agents listen to this. A lot of agents want to know what they can do to improve their careers. Is there tactical things that you do differently? Perhaps maybe easy enough to know, like, hey, you could do this, but maybe most people don't do it. Can you share some insight on what you're doing?
There's definitely some days where it's like 150 to 200 phone calls a day. And I'm not envious of those days, though, because usually I'm pretty dang drained, and it's usually peak season and I'm stressed. But definitely I am on the phone a good bit. I mean, when we get off this podcast, I'm sure I'll have multiple missed calls and a billion emails. And I try to get back to everybody by close of business, for sure. I really do everything I can to not let it linger into the next day, because I don't really want to do that selfishly to myself either. Like, I don't want to have, just push it off. And it's a disservice, I think. So and this is something that I tell people all the time, is my calendar really runs my life. It's so wild to me. And some of the people that I know that are successful too, that don't I just utilize a simple Google Calendar.
Same.
Actually, Seth, yesterday, he asked me, he said, hey, can you just take a picture of what your calendar looks like on a typical day? I said, yeah, sure. And I took a screenshot and sent it to him. And, I'll have Mondays, Tuesdays, I definitely are a little bit stacked heavier because stuff in the weekend that gets pushed to, Monday, Tuesday. My calendar, truly, I stick to it, I set it there and I stick to it. And when I'm on the phone, this is another thing too, with a client, right? Let's say a prospective buyer. Hey, Matthias, we're actually not going to be coming into town now until mid-October. Oh, okay, great. Is it okay if I give you a call, first week of October? Oh, that would be great. Even end of September, if you want to give me a call. And, and I'm putting these notes in my phone while we're talking, and I'm setting a calendar appointment at the same time while I'm on with them. So it's just this constant preparation and planning, right? And planning has led to, procuring this, closing that, and just the business that I've built is based off of the calendar and the notes section under my contacts on my phone. So simple.
That's
So
amazing.
simple.
The notes section on the count on the
The
iPhone.
notes, and the notes section of my phone as well, as far as speaking with, prospective sellers, for people in the area that say, I'm thinking about it, maybe this and that. Okay, well, if I bring you a contract, would you consider, okay, well, if I was able to get, let's say, $2 million or clear 2 million, I mean, so we're in a house that Tony built here.
Yeah.
There was one recently on Singer Island that he just finished, and that was the conversation. Oh, well, if I get 2 million, so it's like these lists of properties as well that I'm consistently working on too, with sellers as well. That just keeping track of everything.
There's a lot of virtue in that, right? It's almost like your own CRM.
Exactly.
You can see
It's
it.
basic, but
Yeah, you keep it simple, which a lot of times when you ask the most successful people, hey, how do you do it? They're like, well, keep it really simple.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, following up to, I think so this goes back to the beginning of our conversation, is the persistence aspect that a lot of agents, especially newer ones, they feel a bit uncomfortable being that it might be the third, fourth, fifth time that they followed up with someone. But I think there's a way to go about doing it and spacing it and timing it and putting the ball in their court as it relates to timing, that it's not offensive or you're not being a pest. So I do believe utilizing the calendar on that and staying persistent as well, because that fifth call might be the one where the buyer says, you know what, I want to be in Ocean Walk in Jupiter, and I want to be between 2 and 2.5, and I'm actually going to be in town this weekend. It might be that fifth call. It might be that sixth call.
Yeah.
But if you give up on the second or third call because it's like you're discouraged, or they seem like they didn't have time for you on the phone, or maybe they were short with you, then you're going to miss that fifth or sixth call where it actually happens.
It's that time and
Persistence.
chance.
What's that?
Sometimes you just get time and chance. You get the person on a good day. Do you schedule it? Like, so for example, perhaps you have somebody who's a $10 million listing. I don't have time. Click, right? Maybe you get that a few times. Do you schedule it 2 weeks in advance to follow up with John?
With who?
With John, just
John the seller? The $10 million?
using an average name.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I was saying, I try to put the ball in their court, and I try to not do text unless the person just doesn't pick up the phone and you kind of have to defer to text, because you can tell in someone's voice pretty quickly, are they in a rush? Are they busy? So you have to be able to pick up on that in
Those little nuances right there.
quickly, right? Because if I call John, right, and I've been trying to get John's listing for $10 million for, let's say, 3 months. And we've been talking about the market. That's important too. As long as I'm studying the market every day, I know what's selling. I know what's trading. I know what's coming to market, all these different intricacies that we can have an educated conversation about the market. And he can associate me with being someone that's a well-versed realtor. So then there's that trust that I know Matthias is going to get me the right number because he knows the market. He knows what's happening. He knows what's coming out of the ground.
Yeah.
And what I'll do though is say I call John, and John, it's a Tuesday at 10 a.m. And hey, John, it's Matthias. Just checking in. Wanted to, talk to you about the listing, about potentially listing, about what the market's. Yeah. You know what? And I hear someone in the background talking this and that. I say, John, it sounds like it's not a good time. No problem. When should I give you a call? Like I said, I'm putting the ball in their court now.
Yeah.
And they say to me, you know what, Matthias, you're right. I'm swamped. My apologies. Thursday at 1. Can you give me a call? Okay, I'll call you Thursday at 1. No problem.
That's a lot of awareness.
So I put it, boom, right on the phone. Thursday at 1. Hey, John, what's going on? Just checking in, blah, blah, blah. And usually when you're giving them the control to create their schedule because their time is so valuable. Say you call a client and they sound rushed. Oh, I'm packing. Next week I'm going to the Keys for mini season. And then the week after, I'm going to be really busy because I'm catching, or maybe they don't even tell you that, but okay, this guy owns 3 companies. And if he's going away for a week, he's stressed. And then the week he gets back, he's going to be even more stressed because he's going to be playing catch up. So let me schedule for midweek the following week.
So much awareness you have.
Right? Yeah. And also it comes from my own personal experience in business, but also just year after year, seeing how these people operate,
Wow.
and trying to respect their time and respect, how to navigate these deals. Because the last thing you want to do, and I talked about this recently, is you really don't want your number to be showing up on someone's phone and them to go, block, or not block, but maybe block, decline, or send it to a text message. Can I call you later? Whatever it might be. That's not the goal. The goal is to really create some connectivity there, and some mutual respect and to work together. And I think that's also why the surfing, the free diving, the spearfishing, the boating, all of these different things too can help, because the conversation doesn't necessarily always have to be about real estate then too. Say the kids play together, or they're in school together, or, you know, the guy or the gal likes to surf, whatever it might be. You know, we can talk about not just real estate. So then, because for some people, it could just feel like a chore selling their house or buying a house. It's just another task. You know, they don't maybe have such a passion or enjoyment about it. It's more so like another stressor in their life. So let's talk about something that's maybe not so much a stressor. Let's keep it a little bit lighter, you know, especially if you're on the phone and in John or Susie or whoever sounds ultra stressed. Oh, you see, it looks like we might be getting some waves next week, or do any diving this summer, or whatever the conversation might be able to kind of segue to something else. So it's not just Matthias, the realtor, is calling me. I don't have time. I'm stressed out of my mind. Business is crazy today, whatever might be going on. Kids are sick. You know, who knows what's going on behind the scenes, like the whole human element of dealing with people in real estate. It's like, you have to be able to navigate these situations and people and their timelines, you know, efficiently, effectively, and understanding that there's a person on the other side of the phone, you know.
That's so good. And it's just really to do that, really, I would almost like believe it probably takes a couple of years to really nail that focus of, hey, this is the tonality, here's how it goes, here's the timing it's scheduled. You probably have gone through a lot of trial and error, but you know, that's something that makes, you know, agents successful, is getting past that third year, and then really getting into flow and getting past, you know, surviving, paying rent, paying for gas, groceries. What would you say to somebody getting started that says, hey, I really am so inspired by what you're doing? Because there's a lot of proof in this world nowadays. You can see the numbers, you can go on Instagram. What would you tell somebody getting started, like a mindset, kind of getting into it to get to these levels that you're at right now?
Treat it like truly a profession, you know, and don't give up. That's really what it comes down to too. I think people get stuck in these ruts, and that goes back to mindset. So trying to stay positive and do things that make you feel positive, aside from just putting into the work, you know, jar, also put into, you know, health, fitness, mental health, all of those things. Those are so critical, because they you know, flow over into the work aspect. You know, if someone lets themselves go and, you know, gains a bunch of weight, and they're not eating healthy, or they're drinking a lot, or they're staying out late, I mean, it's going to be really hard to, especially in such a hyper competitive, you know, market here, industry, it's going to be really hard to compete, you know, especially if you're new. But if you're showing up and you're healthy, and you're positive, and you're taking care of yourself, and you're taking care of your clients, like that will help with that mindset, you know. And consistency too, I think, is important. Also, this is interesting, a similar place that maybe you go and get coffee or go to eat. So then you're creating that community. You're seeing people around you. You're having that, you know, that consistency of seeing these people and getting to know them, and just being around like-minded individuals, you know, and having a support group is important. Having friends that you can truly speak openly with, and that can critique you and call you on your stuff when you're, you know, maybe not being true to yourself. And all of those factors, I think, is my own experience, is what's helped me with my mindset, you know, with trying to stay positive and consistent, because it's easy to get stuck in the ruts. It's so easy in this business, especially because you might have a week straight where every deal falls apart, everything you've been working for the last couple months, every phone call is negative. You know, the clients are just stressed out of their mind. They're projecting it onto you. It might not even have to do just with the deal. Yeah. And it's easy to kind of to take that on. And so if you don't have an outlet, like we've talked about, you know, I have surfing, I have free diving, and other yoga and other things that I do. If I didn't have that outlet, I think it'd be really easy to fall into a negative mindset. But having a support group and having friends, and true friends, you know, I've got true friends in my life, and some of which that I do business with as well, that I know, you know, at the drop of a hat, like if I need something, they're there, they're available. If I need just to talk to someone, whatever it might be, very fortunate for that. You know, that helps the mindset too, knowing that you've got good people. Like when our dog ran away, this is like kind of off topic a bit, but our dog ran away. We were in El Salvador. This was in March or April. And we had a sitter that was watching the dog out in West Palm. Dog got out of the leash somehow, ran like 2.5 miles around Haverhill and Military, this little white foo-foo dog that we have, right? I mean, in like a half hour, we had a group text, our family, you know, 15, 20 people that were running around that had taken off work. I mean, just felt so loved and cared for, and such good people. And knowing things like that, like little situations that was really terrible. We ended up getting the dog, fortunately. But just to show that support community, it can really reinforce that positive mindset to know that, you're cared for. And, my wife, her car broke down yesterday on alternate A1A. We had a really close friend, someone also I do business with too. He got to the scene before I did, to make sure that my wife was safe, the kids, he was ready to take the kids, bring them to school. I mean, this is a very busy individual, very busy. So, having that support network, being involved in the community, and also they know that I would do it for them.
Yeah.
Any of these situations, right? Someone's dog went missing, someone's car broke down, like being available and dependable and responsible, like all of these things to this network of people is, for me, what's really helped my mindset. And what I would suggest to other agents is not just to stay in the office or stay on your computer and, do that all day and just research or whatever and send out, e-blasts and post on Facebook. It's actually to get out in the community too.
Yeah.
Let people know who you are. You'll find your people.
Yeah. You can definitely see it, from your Instagram stories, you're a community person. You're always with pictures with your friends fishing or surfing.
Yeah.
But there was one thing I wanted to ask you. I know that you mentioned like focusing on health, focusing on your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times when people are achieving success for the first time ever, they get like dialed in on that and they forget about everything else. Have you ever had that, or have you always stayed consistent about, hey, I should take care of myself as well?
I've lost balance for sure, definitely. There's been points in my career, I would say actually probably the second year I was at Element, when I was really, trying to build my business, and I was sacrificing a lot. Rachel, my wife, really stepped up to the plate as far as, with taking care of the kids, because I was just constant. And it's paid off in dividends, but at the time it was pretty challenging, because what I did, and it was a bit strategic too, was when I joined Element, I was the first Jupiter agent. So I was going to all these different conferences that Element was hosting, office openings in New York and California and Texas, and, really trying to put myself out there as, hey, do you have someone for Jupiter? Give me a call, basically, was the intention there. And it's paid off for sure. It's definitely something that I'm grateful I did at the time. But as far as balance, it was pretty limited, definitely. Yeah. When the kids were a bit younger, there was times in my career that I wasn't surfing as much. I wasn't as involved with the family. I was putting work before the family. And you just learn and grow from that and see, you kind of evaluate who you are and who you want to be, what your ideals are. Why did I get into this business? What is the most important? Where will I be in 20 years? And it's like, I was in growth mode, with the business. Yeah. Not that there's any excuse for it, but now I feel much more present, much more balanced, much more stability, Do
you think, was that necessary to get where you're at today?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, maybe it would have taken a little longer. Yeah. Right? Like maybe had I pulled back a little bit and not done as much as I did at those first couple of years, especially at Douglas Elliman, would I have still been able to reach the same level? I think so, but I don't know if it would have been at the same velocity.
Very few people, really take those risks to do that kind of stuff. Is that part of like what has helped you succeed, going to all the different markets?
Definitely, and the first couple of times is scary because it's like, oh gosh, like you just said, I'm going to spend $3,000-$4,000, whatever it might be, between flight, hotel, Uber, taxi, food, all of these things. Although fortunately it's a write-off when it comes to taxes. A lot of it is, but it is pretty difficult and challenging. But after the first 2-3 times, where each time I've been able to make some connection, which has led to a referral, which has led to a sale, where it's like I made 4x the investment or 5x or 10x the investment of what I spent on that travel, is always proven to be worth it. Always. So now it's like, I know, even though sometimes I don't necessarily want to go to whatever the event might be because I want to just be with the family, or I want to, there's a lot goes into it now with coverage for business and things like that. Yeah. Is that it always does pay off. Yeah. For me and my business, I should say. I don't know other people's business and other agents. I don't know, but for me personally, yes, it's always seemed to pay off. Yeah. When I had talked about making the switch, I was so hungry for knowledge and hungry to know, why are these agents that are crushing it at this company? Yeah. Why are they all here? This little office in the Royal in Palm Beach. Why do we have so many heavy hitters right here.
Yeah.
You know, and the longer I've stayed at the company, the more it's reinforced like, oh yeah, okay, all right, you know, to see how they navigate differently, you know.
They really do. I've as a photographer, I've seen like just like you said, the way they answer the phone, the way they interact with clients, is those little things that that 1% of agents you don't see in other people. So we have a question from the audience. And the question is, what's something that you did in the past that didn't work and that you now know you've stopped doing?
Personally, I would say a strategy that has just never worked for me, but it might work for someone else, is the scripts. You know, the scripts for me have always felt a bit forced. Anytime that I've tried to utilize scripts, and I've read that in different strategies, it just didn't really ever have a connection. I felt like a parrot kind of, you know, having to read off of a script. I couldn't really connect with other people when I'm going off of a script. So my personal experience is just that certain people, I think it's important. Maybe they get really nervous or they get tongue tied, and to have like 4 or 5 different buzzwords or sentences to know how to respond to someone.
Yeah.
It could be great with navigating. But personally, that strategy I never really connected with the script aspect. And then a positive strategy that someone had presented to me in the beginning that's really been helpful. I always say this, not always, but I've said this multiple times. Lance Reed, Reliance Real Estate, first company I worked for. I was at Starbucks. I still have this embedded in my mind. Starbucks at Okeechobee in 95, we met. I think I had just gotten my license, but I didn't have it hung yet, or I was about to get my license, the state exam. Anyway, he was who I was going to hang my license with, who I did the first few months in the business doing rentals. And Lance got really intense. He looked at me in the eyes and he said, the reason people, most agents, a lot of agents fail is they don't listen. You know, the tenant will say, I need a 4-bedroom that accepts dogs. They send them a 2-bedroom that only allows cats, right? And then they just feel kind of like there's this disconnect and the person doesn't care about them. And he got really intense. He looked me in the eyes like, listen, listen, listen. And I was like, wow, you know, he really puts a lot of importance on that. And I've tried to continue that today. So that's a strategy. It's so simple, but really truly listening to the client's needs. And like I said, the notes section helps with that as well, especially now having worked with so many people. It'd be very hard to keep track of everything. So when I'm listening, I'm also putting it down on paper as well.
Do you have AirPods in?
Sometimes not. Sometimes it's speaker. If I'm at the office at the yacht club, I'm able to close the doors. So sometimes I'll be on speaker and doing that while I'm working. And then the highest ROI. What an interesting question, because I'm always trying to understand what it is that works. I'm always trying to
pinpoint it.
You know, exactly. Pinpoint. Social media has been great.
Yeah.
And there really is no investment aside from time. I mean, you can do boosted posts, but now with the Fair Housing Act, you really can't get specific with demographics. So it's good for, you know, reaching just the general market of people, but you used to be able to get specific with it. But now with Fair Housing, they've removed that aspect. So I might have someone call off a postcard, and then the next month I might have 2 people that call off of the magazine publication, or the next month someone might call off of, you know, a sign that I have in the ground in front of a property. Yeah. So it's really hard for me to necessarily say exactly specific, because I try to do everything.
But you have to have exposure from multiple angles. For sure. Because
it's like, oh, I saw his name on this listing, and I saw his name in this magazine, and I saw him on social media here, and my friend just bought a house from him. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different avenues where they're associating my name with real estate, hopefully luxury real estate on the water. If you're thinking investment is time, you know, sitting at open houses where there's going to be a lot of foot traffic that might not even be your listing, great ROI. Like I said, social media too, great ROI. These are potentially free avenues.
Matthias, you've been an amazing guest. You've given so much value to the people who are listening, and we appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks. I really appreciate the invite. Thanks for all you do, Claudio. And this was great. What a great setup. So thank you for having me today.